Does it make sense then why Jesus and John the Baptist are so strong when they tell the religious leaders that they're a brood of vipers? Does that make sense why they were so strong in their remarks in rebuking these religious leaders? John said this, his first encounter with the religious leaders in Matthew 3:7. He says, "But when he saw many of the Pharisees and Sadducees coming to his baptism, he said to them, 'You brood of vipers, who warned you to flee from the wrath to come?'" Jesus said in Matthew 12:34, he said, "You brood of vipers, how can you speak good when you are evil? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks." Jesus' tone gets even more aggressive later on in Matthew 3 when he says, "You serpents, you brood of vipers, how are you to escape being sentenced to hell?" Sometimes we get this picture of Jesus being this hippie who always talks about love, but we see that God is righteousness in mercy. He's judgment and He's grace. Amen? There's two things you need to know about vipers that I think unpacked even greater depth of what John and Jesus are saying. The first things are vipers were small snakes that looked much like sticks and were hard to notice. They blended into their surroundings. Sometimes while gathering firewood, people would pick up a viper thinking that it was a stick. If you remember in Acts 28, the Apostle Paul has this very thing happen. People would pick up these vipers thinking that they were useful, but instead were extremely deadly. The second thing about vipers are that you would find broods of them in cooler places in the desert, such as caves and under trees. A desert traveler who was looking for safety and shelter would search out these cooler locations to camp and find rest. But unfortunately, the spot that looked to offer coolness and rest and safety would instead be a location that would lead to a slow and painful death. The place that was supposed to be the safest ended up being the most deadliest. So think of it this way. Jesus and John were calling these religious leaders a brood of vipers because on the outside, they looked helpful. On the outside, they looked like they could help in a time of need, just like a viper would help someone who is looking to gather firewood to keep warm. On the outside, the temple looked like a place to find rest for those who were tired and weary. On the outside, it looked like they could find safety here, but when travelers finally ended up entering into the temple, they found that it was not at all what they were looking for. The travelers soon found out that the place was full of man-made rules that weighed them down and brought eternal despair. The temple became a place of corruption, abuse, manipulation, and that is why Jesus had to clear out the temple.